Hi, my name is Margaret and I will be presenting the case of Tom today. I am a trainee psychologist and I've been assigned to work with Tom for over a year now regarding his issues related to self-esteem and relationships. Tom is a client that often expresses to me appreciation for me just being there and considers me as the best therapist that he's worked with so far. I'm finding that Tom's primary source of meaning and pleasure within therapy, and I have reasons to believe that his issues that remain unresolved is hindering him from receiving proper treatment. So I am thinking about having a discussion with Tom about his non-progress. However, I'm quite concerned about a possible fallout from this. So that being said, I've decided to utilize the ethical decision-making model to work through some possible issues I might have. This process will help me deliberate on thoughts and provide reasoning on my actions as opposed to relying on gut instinct or intuition. So step one involves identifying the ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma is when two or more ethical principles are in conflict with each other. I'm finding that Tom's appreciation towards therapy has contributed to our strong therapeutic alliance. However, it is unethical to keep Tom in treatment, seeing as he's clearly not benefiting from therapy. I have reasons to believe that Tom may have developed feelings or attachment unrelated to therapy, which may explain why treatment has not been working. In a way, my professional boundaries have been crossed, and I'm currently feeling conflicted with my competency to continue. Being considered Tom's primary source of pleasure and meaning in therapy, I believe that's beyond the scope of an appreciation for a therapist. The ethical dilemma presented here is that while the decision to terminate therapy is quite necessary, satisfying principle of beneficence, which is acting in the best interest of a client, it becomes complicated when the decision may be placing Tom's welfare at risk, breaching ethical principle of non-maleficence, which is avoiding harm to the client. But because Tom is unable to address his issues during therapy, raises concerns regarding his perception of our therapeutic relationship. During step two, I consulted with the APS Code of Ethics. Standard B1.4D states that psychologists are required to monitor their practice and become aware of any problems that might impair their competence. Standard B.3G states that psychologists must be aware and take steps to establish and maintain proper professional boundaries with their clients and colleagues. Standard B.11 states that psychologists must terminate services with a client if it is reasonably clear that a client is not benefiting from treatment. Step three involves taking into consideration of factors that may have influenced my decision to terminate therapy. I look onto the objectivity trap, which is the belief that remaining objective comes easily. I was mindful of my history working with difficult male clients, and I acknowledge that my prior negative experiences are not related to Tom. My values trap is being influenced by what is important to me. So my gender role as a female, I have considered the possibility that if the present issue with Tom was instead present with a female client, I may behave or feel differently and regard it as a non-issue. Step four involves consultation with a colleague. In this process, I have concealed Tom's identity, and I was advised to discuss with Tom about his non-progress and proceed with termination. All the while, I had to keep in mind of this consultation and reaffirming my proposed course of action. Step five involves considering all the vulnerabilities of all parties affected, including myself as a professional. In accordance to APS principle of respect, I must avoid discriminating unfairly against Tom on the basis of his gender, age, sexuality, and ethnicity. By evaluating my responsibilities as a professional, My decision to terminate is in accordance to ethical standard competence. I would be working beyond my scope of experience or knowledge if I were to continue treatment. Step 6 involves generating possible courses of actions. So the first action would entail me continuing treatment with Tom, but that being said, I would devise a new plan for therapy that will assist in addressing Tom's issues with better and clearer direction. The new plan will also involve introducing an outcome rating scale and session rating scales. This will help track Tom's progress at the end of every session. It would also be beneficial for me to upskill and commit to further training alongside working with a clinical supervisor. I must keep in mind of providing Tom with a disclosure statement, which will address the possibility of termination if therapy does show not to benefit Tom again. The second action involves devising a termination plan and finding an appropriate referral for Tom's needs. In this action, I would be acknowledging Tom's possible feelings about ending treatment. I must keep in mind of validating the meaning of work that we've done together. And to help with Tom's closure, I will also be discussing goals that remain unmet so that he's able to bring this forward to the next therapist. Step 7 involves enumerating the consequences of each possible course of action. So there's a possibility that Tom has been able to work through his issues in therapy and therapy comes to an end. Secondly, Tom may exhibit improvement in therapy, but may require longer treatment due to his long-standing issues. Lastly, the therapeutic process may be affected due to Tom making inappropriate advances. The second action comes with possibilities that Tom may have adjusted quite well with the new therapist and has made positive progression. Another possibility that the therapist referral may have caused problems with trust. So while Tom may continue therapy with a new therapist, he may not feel that inclined to open up as quickly. So the therapeutic process may take longer than expected. Thirdly, if Tom has experienced a history of loss or abandonment, this may exacerbate his problems further and he may actually just delay moving on to a new therapist. Lastly, there's a possibility Tom may drop out of treatment completely and end up with no support, as his disappointment in therapy may actually drive him to engage in harmful or self-defeating behaviours. So step 8 involves the decision-making. With all things considered, I've decided to continue my treatment with Tom with some conditions. This would be satisfying APS principle of respect, providing Tom with fair access to therapy. I have reasons to believe that Tom's non-progress in therapy was attributed to a lack of clear direction and undefined treatment goals. I believe that my competence compromised the therapeutic outcome due to my inexperience as a training psychologist. I will work on resolving this by upskilling and commencing further training in areas that are related to self-esteem and relationships. This would be satisfying APS ethical standard related to competence. I have reasons to believe that the long-term consequences of ending treatment might prove to be detrimental to a greater extent than if I were to keep Tom on. There is research to suggest that positive therapy outcomes are strongly linked to a good therapeutic relationship. So with that being said, I've decided to continue treatment with Tom to safeguard and honour the therapeutic alliance that we share. There is also research to show that premature termination typically occurs on a client's behalf, especially when there is obvious dissatisfaction with the quality of therapy or the therapeutic alliance, or if a client starts to feel less hopeful about progress. So taking this into account, Tom did not appear to be presenting the issues listed above. Therefore, the arrival of my decision to continue treatment came with great confidence. I have reasons to believe that Tom's deep gratitude towards therapy was not considered disruptive. I attribute this to his lack of close relationships outside of therapy. Bartholomew and colleagues build on this, and they suggest that clients who struggle interpersonally may actually just seek that connection with their therapist. Another possible reason for Tom's non-progress is that Tom may be unaware of how important his contributions are, and this may have hindered his ability to open up. McFarlane and colleagues expand on this and suggest that clients who are quite preoccupied when they first enter therapy, they don't account for their contributions and often assign this responsibility to the therapist. So to avoid future hindrance where Tom feels stuck in therapy, Proskauer and colleagues expand on the APS principle of propriety, highlighting the importance of professional supervision. I have reasons to believe that professional supervision will increase the value of the therapeutic process, satisfying ethical standard related to confidence in monitoring professional functioning. I also believe that working under supervision will also improve my knowledge and help me acquire skills in understanding my own reactions and build my self-confidence as a trainee psychologist. That being said, I believe that this will also assist me in helping Tom work through his attitudes and behaviors in a more adaptive way. So it's also important to acknowledge that termination, premature or not, is actually a regular part of clinical practice and should be discussed quite regularly with a client.